Let's get a bit of business news now. Joining me to discuss, Chris Weston, Head of Research at Pepperstone. Chris, so the RBA Governor has said last night that it seems likely that rates will be cut again. Hard to argue against that if it's going to happen. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to happen. The prospect of it happening in October seems pretty high. But then they may wait for the next CPI print in late October, and if they don't cut in October, then they're going to cut in November. What we've heard is that they're quite they're fairly optimistic about what's happening in house prices, but they're not seeing a blowout in credit. They're pretty happy with the way the domestic economy is going, but it's the external factors which, once again, would be why they look to cut rates. And the fact is, if everyone else is easing, they should be as well. They don't want to be left behind because otherwise we get a stronger currency. So, look, we are going to get a lower cash rate, and the question is do we get that in October, which the market say is probably on balance the likely scenario, or do we see one on Melbourne Cup Day? It's one or the other.
I guess the big question then is, do the banks pass it on?
Well, absolutely. I mean, that's the situation we always see. But, yeah, I mean, at the moment, the borrowing costs are so low for the banks that there's no reason why they shouldn't be passing on the full amount or, again, a decent quantity of that situation.
These issues that are taking place overseas at the moment, how much of a negative impact could that be having on the global economy, particularly with the events that are taking place in Britain at the moment?
Well, Brexit has been one situation which a lot of central banks have been flagging. The problem is we don't actually know what's going to happen there, and it's very difficult to model, the implications of this when we just simply have no idea. So, I mean, Brexit's one situation. A slowdown in Europe is one other situation. We're seeing, Germany really looking like that's in recession at the moment, and, their PMI numbers are very, very weak. Industrial production will continue to be weak. The service sector started to fall away there, and that's another situation. The slowdown in China is real, although they have been expanding their credit creation, and the impulse there is starting to move a little bit higher. But, yeah, it's the external factors which people are concerned about. And I think, look, overnight, people got quite concerned about what's happening in the US markets. But, consumer confidence took a massive dive. And if consumer confidence is falling, the big saving grace, I suppose, for the US economy has been that consumption's been so high. And if that starts to pull away, consumers are starting to feel less confident. And the US starts to be part of infiltrated in that as well, then that's going to be a big issue. But, of course, that consumer is going to be, dealt with the promises of massive spending as we go into the 2020 election, I think.